Kyle was like, hey, Steve, we're going to do an internal pod. And so it was going to be, I think, him, Salim, Bob, and Kyle. So Kyle, Salim, Steve, Bob.
Okay.
And Bob, I don't think, wanted to come down here. I think Salim was on that, but John had called me too, and he was like the first huge supporter of me doing it.
Really, eh?
Just being on there, yeah. And because he used to listen to Zapped.
That's what I'm saying.
So he's already heard you.
So he's heard like the camaraderie with me and Bob.
Cool.
And I think Kyle listened to a couple too, so he was starting to like see it a little bit, but John really saw it. And they decided, like, this is when Gabe was like getting his shots on the mic and shit. And so they were going to put Gabe on the mic, and John was like, yo, let's put fucking Steiny on there and see what happens.
Yeah.
And so it ended up being me, Gabe, Steve, and Kyle. And I just fucking roasted the fuck out of Gabe for a lot of it.
I remember that episode.
Yeah,
you guys went at it for a
out of him. Yeah.
It worked.
It was fun, and it worked. And then, but we also talked real shit with Kyle and Steve, and people had a good response to it, and like that I was on there. And I think that Kyle and John thought that there was potential to have me on there.
Yeah.
And then probably come, and Steve had no problem with it that time because it was like he was there and stuff. And so we went to Texas, did another internal episode, and then...
And that was without Steve?
That was with Steve.
Okay, with Steve.
Yeah, and it went really well again. And then there was a guest, and I fucking can't remember who. I want to say it was Candace Owens.
It was
the first
Candace
one I
Owens,
did.
yeah.
And they
went to
had...
Daily Wire, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had texted me, Kyle had texted me and been like, hey, bro, like, are you busy tomorrow? We do have an episode. And so I went and asked Steve. I was like, hey, they want me to do Candace Owens. Like, it's here. Do you mind if I fly there for the day? And he was like, no, go do it.
And by the way, that episode, I feel like you were the most prepared.
Yeah, bro.
I watched that. You actually kind of knew what
Well,
you were
that's-
talking about. Like, and I mean, the other boys were just taking it from a different angle.
Sure.
But I feel like you actually approached it from a more like political. You kind of had your shit set. I don't know. Maybe
Well-
it's because your first time and you're like, I need to crush this.
Yeah, well, that's for sure what it was.
Yeah.
But, like, I kind of looked at that. So that was my first big opportunity. And it's like, dude, that's an opportunity. Like, if you do a shitty job, they're not going to have you back
Yeah,
on
you're
there.
done. Yeah, you're done.
So I was like, yo, I'm going to be prepared and just fucking do the best I can.
Crush
And
it.
it went really well.
Yeah.
And
And the comments show it because like
Yeah.
we're big. Like we'll read comments of everything. Our own videos,
yeah, I just
other
stopped doing
people's.
that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it depends.
I'm sure we'll stop soon, too.
But man, people I showed you love. I remember.
Oh, yeah.
People were loving like you being a third host.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
It makes
now,
sense
you can
now,
tell
bro,
me,
because
but-
like you like in the pods that you were in at the beginning, even now, like it seemed like you had experience.
Yeah,
It's
well,
crazy.
that's-
you did. Like we did it. Like I didn't know that.
So
That's
when
why.
I was doing Zap, Bob never prepared for anybody.
yeah.
You know, he just was
Crazy.
himself. He was just himself and like his funny guy. And then he kind of leaned on me to do like more of like the
Really
background. Who
detailed.
is this guy? Like detailed questions that have to do with their life or what they do for a living. Like,
which is what you do now too.
yeah,
Like yeah.
So that kind of prepped me a little bit. But so we did Candace, and I think after that, I think I was here in Cali and we did Pauly D.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was another thing like, yo, Salim or whoever they wanted couldn't be on the episode. Can you do it? And it went really well, and people started to like the relationship like of me and Bob and like us going back and forth, and then me, Kyle, and Bob just like doing the interview.
Mhm.
And at that point, I just kind of knew like I think they're gonna start asking me to do more,
Okay.
and it became really hard, dude, because I knew I was gonna have to make a big decision.
Yeah.
For sure.
When did you first know that like you were gonna have to make a call?
I knew it because when we did Joe Burrow, right? We did
Yeah.
Joe Burrow, and we did a Steve video the day before. So we did Steve. I think it was the Walmart video where he beat out Shaq.
Yeah, you just
Yes.
spent. You bought
Where
everything.
he beat his spending. It might have been that one or it might have been the one before, but I just remember we did that video that whole day, and then I had to fly to Cincinnati to do Joe Burrow the next day at like 6 a.m.
And you're like, I can't do it.
So I
Yeah.
slept for maybe an hour and then went to go do Joe Burrow, and we crushed Joe Burrow. It went really well, and then I just like Steve had hit me up, and I just kind of like had a feeling like, fuck, like if I'm Steve and I have my guy and I need him and he's doing a fucking podcast,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be happy either. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's just
You were like living
how
two
it is.
lives at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. And I really thought, I was like, yo, I can do this where once a week I'll go fly in, do the episode, fly out. But it's just not.
It's not realistic.
It's not realistic, bro. And like,
And you would be like mentally drained, dude.
mentally drained, and then there will be that day where he wants to do something that day, and there's that conflict. Like, fuck, what do I choose?
yeah.
Right. And so it was just a tough position. And after Joe Burrow, I just kind of knew, and tried to make it so I could do both, and that wasn't an option for either end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just told Steve. He kind of honestly was just like
He kinda
more
knew
like, yeah,
something.
he knew something was up, and he just kept telling me like, oh, just go do the podcast, and
Yeah.
it just kind of happened. Just kind of like, dude, like,
Is that a sad moment for you?
yeah, it was really
Yeah.
sad, bro. It was. I mean, I remember I was in Mexico. This is actually when I knew the day of. I was in Mexico, and we were doing streaming in Cancun, and they texted me and said, we're doing Dave Portnoy tomorrow. We need you there.
You
And
cannot miss that
running.
one.
No, you can't miss it. And the thing is him and Bob had beef, and I knew about it, so they wanted me to play that role of like,
Ask about
yeah,
that.
you gotta fucking get under Portnoy's skin and get Bob and Dave going.
Yeah.
So they kind of needed me for that role on that pod, and I had to tell Steve because I was going back a day before him,
Yeah.
and I just knew he was like, bro, what, like,
Yeah, make
It's
a
happening
decision
too
now.
much.
yeah,
yeah.
to just like make a decision. It was hard because people are always
That's
like,
a
dude,
tough decision, dude.
people are always like, dude, like, how the fuck could you do that? Like, and it's just like, dude, it's
Nobody really
how can
knows
you-
until they're in your
No,
position,
they don't,
bro.
and it's like the podcast is crushing. They just did Donald Trump, like it's going crazy. It's a big opportunity, and then Steve's is a big opportunity too. And I
course.
love Steve as a person, like. You know, that's the guy that first really believed in me. Like, Bob believed in me, but Steve took it to another level.
Yeah.
Gave me an opportunity that nobody else ever did.
He really put you on the map.
Yeah, he
Like,
did.
You as a
100%.
person. Yeah.
He changed my life completely. So that's why it was so hard.
For sure.
And so we had talked about it, and like at the end of the day, he was like, he was like, whatever, like
Business
he got
decision,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, he's like, dude, like, you do you, but like I'm gonna be focused on me, and you know, I think there's just times when you really gotta be like, I want to do what's gonna be best for me in my life,
Even if it hurts others sometimes.
even if yeah, and that's just the way it is, bro. You know,
Yeah. Well, going back to not giving a fuck.
and it was so hard, dude, because with Steve, like, me and him were so close at that point. Like, he wasn't
Yeah.
only like my boss, but something I kind of developed with Bob too is you just become so fucking close.
Well, you can
to
see
people.
it on camera too.
Yeah.
Like, you can see it when you're watching the videos and stuff. Like these guys have a bond.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And
Well,
you're with these guys every
That's
day.
what I'm saying. You spend so much
24/7.
time with them that you just naturally like
Become
develop
boys.
something like that. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So you make the call. You have the chat with Steve, and you're like, okay, I'm on Full Send podcast now.
He actually pretty much made the decision for me.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Because he just saw you not being able to make a decision. He's like, okay.
He was just like, dude, like I think he could tell that I wanted to do it.
and you couldn't tell him like really.
And I
straight
couldn't
up?
tell him
Yeah.
because I was like, dude, there's got to be a way that I can do both.
You didn't
Like,
wanna let him down.
You want to, yeah, exactly. You want to like convince yourself, like, okay, there's a way to make it work.
Yeah.
And I had such a great relationship with Judd, who's on the LLC, and Alex, who's the
Yeah.
editor. Like, because you go through something like that with 3 people, and you guys just like really grind every week.